So my name is Kiersten Yusi. I am a dancer and I've been doing this for 9 years. So I currently am attending the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I am a junior, although I am planning on graduating a year early, so I have the opportunity to put together a thesis. I have chosen 11 dancers to help me put together and collaborate this project. So I am studying how people use symbolisms of water to reflect on the relationships within themselves and others. So it's been a really great process getting to work with these dancers, collaborating on not only giving them counts and music, but using their individuality within it as well. It's not just a process for me, it's for them. And so this is utilizing contemporary dance, a little bit of jazz and street jazz, but I'm super excited. It's a 10-minute piece, longest choreography I've ever put together, but I'm eternally grateful for everything that they've helped me with as well. When choreographing, I think it's something where you have to think about that not everybody is going to dance the same, and more importantly, not everybody is going to dance like you. So there's really room to add your personality within your movement while still staying on track to what is supposed to be translated through the movement and seen through the movement. It's really interesting to see how I can create choreography in my 10 by 10 space, not even in my apartment, and then what it can look like on these dancers who have various backgrounds in dance. So that's also part of the process, and it's amazing to watch, I think. But yes, so it's very important to get inside of the dancers, as not only are they performing your choreography, but they're living through this experience as well, and they're definitely taking something from it. When I was really little, I used to just put on music, mostly Britney Spears. She was my favorite, and I used to dance around, maybe a little too promiscuously for a young child, but I just loved the feeling of dancing and the confidence that I felt within myself. It gave me another voice. But I really never thought of joining a class for some reason. I always just loved doing it on my own and creating choreography on my own, not setting it, but just dancing around in my room. It was a free space for me. And actually how I got into dance was one of my friends had came up to me and she's like, hey, you want to take a jazz class at a recreational studio nearby? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'll do it. And so we had our performance of Wizard of Oz, and our jazz class was the Wicked Witch of the West. We were her witches. It was a really cute piece, nothing too challenging, but I really felt I learned a lot in that year of dancing. And so the next year I had signed up for a ballet class as well as my jazz class, and the director of the studio, Melissa Truelove, she came up to me and she said, oh, do you want to be our lead for this year's performance? And I was really shocked. I probably had zero technique at that time. I was skipping around stage for most of that performance and putting a smile on my face, but she said that it was the stage presence that I had that she wanted for this character of Snow White. So that really inspired me and that kept me going. So she was one of my biggest inspirations at that time. And if she didn't believe in me at that moment, I'm not sure exactly how far I would have gone. I still love dance, but I think that was one of the pivotal points in my hobby that I decided, maybe this is fitting for me, and maybe I can continue on a path on something that I like to do, and maybe I can turn this into a career. As I started taking ballet, it became really discouraging for me. I found that my arms were super rigid. I was having a really hard time with the discipline of ballet, and I don't know, I just didn't feel super comfortable on my body, although I now know that ballet is really a great foundation for all techniques. And jazz was something that came more easier to my body. It was so easier for me and more comfortable for me to perform. But then you get into contemporary, which is kind of a mixture of ballet and jazz, and then you get into modern, which is a looser form of ballet, but it still has much structure to it. And so as a part of the senior company at my studio, you were required to take most of these classes in order to keep up your technique and be able to perform. So yeah, I mean, and then being a part of this company, we actually were able to travel to Germany and Switzerland every other year. And through our performances, we raised money for a school with children with disabilities that was non-government funded. But along with that, I mean, we got to meet a lot of the townies in a really small town called Buhl in Klettgau, Germany. And this was a tradition that my dance teacher is now continuing from her previous dance mentor. So dance is really historical in this town. And it was just so wonderful to travel at such a young age with all these girls that I was so familiar with and that I danced with. I got to do what I love, travel, and that's when it became more real and more of an excitement that I can really continue this path of dance. There's a lot of self-discipline in dance for sure. I mean, you are given instructions, you perform them, and you get critiqued on the way that you perform it, and that's how you improve. You learn a lot about yourself, and usually in the classroom it's teacher speaks, you follow. There's not much collaboration when you're learning technique, but I think that's important because then you have all the tools that you need when you do want to choreograph, and then you can kind of take that role of being a teacher and a choreographer. The first piece that I ever choreographed, I had the opportunity to take part in a dance festival that was happening in Stamford, Connecticut. It's called Dance Fest, and they had a young choreographers section where they gave a lot of young dancers the chance to choreograph a piece and kind of get familiar with the art of choreographing. So I used mainly most of the girls that I was dancing with in my company, as we have grown really strong and we all knew how we danced and we danced well together. And I was playing between this dichotomy of tension and release. And it was a really great experience to kind of picture everything that I've ever dreamed of and doing it myself, from where the girls were standing to how they were moving, how they transitioned to the next spot. This piece may not have been my best piece. Looking back on it, I'm looking at some of the choices that I've made, and I don't know how to say this, but I wish I wasn't so basic, I would say. Coming to college, I've learned so many new strengths and tools that I can use to manipulate choreography and to create choreography. But nevertheless, it's something that I should celebrate and be proud of as one of my first choreographies, and it's a starting point. And again, I'm so grateful that these girls, again, have put their free time to help me put together something that I wanted to work on. And it's an amazing experience what they offer at Dance Fest. It was really amazing to see others choreograph as well. This gave parents, studios, and pretty much anyone local who wanted to come a chance to see what art was being created in our generation and how we were blooming as choreographers. And hopefully one day the choreographers that I got to watch will be somewhere big one day, and we'll all get to see how far they've come as well. The difference between choreographing for myself and choreographing for a group, I had one of my professors at UMass tell me that a group that was doing similar choreography, unified choreography, was a group doing a solo, as opposed to a group doing a group piece. And that means essentially that when you have a group do the same choreography, there's not much interaction going on. It's mainly, look at me, look at how I'm performing this choreography, rather than a unified piece that is strung together with different group sections, partner duos, there's so much more layering that goes into a group piece rather than creating a solo just for yourself. The first piece that I really choreographed and put together for myself was No Te Enamores, and this is performed by Paloma Mami, and I was listening to it one day in my room and I just started dancing to it. This was after my first year of college. I was home for the summer and it was just something to do in my free time, and this was something that made me feel comfortable and not something where I had to think too much about it. And so this style was jazz funk, which is kind of a mixture between jazz, street jazz, and hip hop. And I found myself craving to choreograph to a technique that I didn't have much training on, although I felt that it was strong for me. And it was something that I felt like I could really use to create a platform for myself as a choreographer, and really make myself more well-rounded, not only in modern ballet, contemporary, and jazz, but then also this commercial dance side of street jazz, hip hop, and jazz funk. So yeah, it was a great experience for me. Looking back, I feel very accomplished, although it's hard for me to look back on my work and be proud, because I always think of, how could you have done this different? Is this eye-catching? Did I succeed? But I always have to remind myself that I can't be too hard, because, you'll never get anywhere if you're constantly thinking and regretting decisions that you make. So it's really important to look back on work that you've created and say, I did a really great job. This is how I'm reflecting on it. This is how I can improve. And then it's an ongoing process. I don't think any work that you create is going to be your best work in that moment, at least. No, and it's like so many hours. A lot of people don't see how much time you really put into these pieces of works. It looks like I just walked outside and I was like, yeah, this is my dance, but it's hours of not only putting choreography together, but then you're constantly changing choreography. But it's something I love to do. And if I told people how many hours I spent a week on creating just a 1-minute piece, they're going to look at me and think I'm crazy, but it's something that drives me, and it's important to listen to that voice. No matter what art style or art form that you're in, or it doesn't even have to be art necessarily, but just find what you're really interested in and stick with it. Yeah, I think that in the process of creating, there's so many opportunities, and it really does change with whatever's coming to your head in that moment. A lot of times choreographers will be inspired by a song that comes on, and then the idea comes along with it. And other times you have the idea that comes to you and you say, okay, what music do I want to encompass this? How many dancers do I want? It's a really broad topic, and it's so unique to each person and each piece too, because I've experienced both of those. So in the moment, I think when I'm dancing for myself and when I create a choreography that makes me feel good and confident, it's mostly starts by me listening to music and thinking, okay, I really feel inspired by this. What inspires me, and how can I translate that in movement to be symbiotically one with the music as well? Although not all dance has to be with music. That's something we're learning in college now, and really breaking down, and I'm really grateful for that. But yes, and then other times when you're thinking of more of a group piece that has this idea, and especially research with your thesis, you're thinking of a lot of the paradigms and structures that need to go into your thought processes before you even choreograph. And this is something very new to me. So I am also very grateful that I get to experience that as well. But yeah, I've experienced a variety of both. Not only do you have the choreography process, but then a lot of people don't see how many hours you're training and how many hours you spend in the studio. In high school, I worked at my home studio 8 to 10 hours a week. I was also dancing 10 hours a week, and then going to school, doing homework in between breaks. I used to pack my breakfast, lunch, and dinner and eat breakfast at school, lunch at school, and my dinner at the studio. Got home by 9:30, showered, did homework in either my free breaks or at night, and did it all again. I mean, dancers, I think, really are super disciplined in that way as well. And I don't think you'll ever meet a dancer that, well, they might not say that they're busy. A lot of people don't like to admit how much they put on their plate, but you'll never meet a dancer that's not working, I mean, an insane amount of hours, especially professionals who also need to make money. Because dance, although it's becoming more lucrative, the most lucrative art form out there. But it's the passion that drives people, and you have people working morning hours, night shifts to dance. And that's something that's so sacred to the dance community, is what keeps driving us. Even when you're running on 6 hours of sleep, you know, you want to get this rehearsal in, you have to get to this rehearsal for a company. But yeah, a lot of time goes into not only just choreographing, but keeping up your technique as well. So on top of going to school, I don't work too much during the school year or at all, just because I find myself, especially with trying to graduate early, I'm cramming in, you know, about 18 to 20 credits a semester, and then rehearsals at nights. But over the summers, I've been working in finance, which actually surprises many, especially for having a degree in dance. However, it's made me realize that a lot of people get so many bachelor's degrees and don't necessarily apply them in the areas that they're working in. So it inspires me to know that I'm getting a bachelor's degree, and I can take my knowledge and I can take what I learn in the studio and apply that in the finance world, or I can apply that in so many different other fields. And I think that inspires others as well, to see that a lot of places are hiring people with liberal arts degrees. And I think the most important thing is that you show up, you get the bachelor's degree, and then from there on, you can really do anything. You can go to your master's school after that if you want. But it's hard to get discouraged, and a lot of people have come to me and they've said, oh, you know, I would have studied dance if I think that would get me money, or, you know, my parents didn't support me doing that. And it makes me really sad, because I think your parents are one of the strongest support systems that you have. And again, I'm so grateful that my parents have allowed me to study this field that I love, and they'll support me endlessly. But yes, I'm always working a summer job just to pay my gas, or I still live with my parents, so I don't have to pay rent yet. And I'm fortunate enough to live close to New York that once I graduate, hopefully I can start living at home a little bit, still find another area of work, whether it is in dance or it's not. But a lot of people in the arts do have many different jobs to make ends meet, and it's something you do for what you love, and I don't think anybody really regrets that. Yeah. So the piece that I most recently worked on was a choreography to Mi Gente by Beyonce and J Balvin. And with this choreography, it was jazz funk again, the style combining jazz, street jazz, and hip hop. And I really wanted to challenge myself as a choreographer. I felt that in my past choreographies, I wasn't necessarily feeling like I was pushing myself. So with this one, I really wanted to challenge dynamic. I wanted to challenge speed. I wanted to challenge emotion, as well as I always put together the edits, and I hire my friends usually to record and pay for a studio to record them in, because I think it's important to invest in yourself. But yes, so again, I did spend a lot of countless hours trying to choreograph, just going over in my room, hitting my head on the wall or my elbow on the bed. I mean, without a real studio to work in, especially with the pandemic going on, it was hard to find a space where I can have time for myself. But yeah, I think one of the things that I learned from that choreography was that you can always still challenge yourself. And even though I was really proud of that work, I know that there's so many areas that I can improve on, whether or not I know it yet. And I think you also learn that with the next choreography that you make, and reflecting on both of those and saying, okay, I had strengths here, I had strengths here, where can I now improve? And soon you'll find different avenues where you can improve, and just keep improving. So I really do feel proud of this work. I feel as though I did challenge myself more in choreography and pushing myself, and I was definitely very tired by the end of that day after recording it many times. But again, no one's really going to notice a little mistake that you make in your choreography either, and sometimes that mistake can be a success as well. So I think reflecting back on that, it pushes me to now choreograph more in that style, and I'm really proud of the work that I've been doing so far. All different kinds of techniques. It is hip hop. It's also some aspects of jazz and street jazz. It's more fluid in the way that you have more to pick from, and you don't have to pick from certain moves and recognize exactly what they are. And it's really more of a form of expression of individuality and confidence as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with how you feel when you perform it. So it's such a fluid term, but it has so many different backgrounds, and there's histories within each of those techniques that are all important to be cognizant of. So let me see. Well, when a lot of people are choreographing, you always have the opportunity to add props, manipulate costumes. There's a productions aspect of lighting and sound that comes into play as well, and that's when you as a choreographer get to make the choices to help you transfer the idea that you want to get across. That's more, especially, I guess it's both in concert and commercial dance as well. And you can really use it to your advantage to create this world for the audience and almost bring them a part of your world as well, whether that's on film or in a live performance. So, and I think it's just another factor that goes into uniqueness and individuality within choreography. Advice that I would give to someone that's interested in starting dance, either as a hobby or a career, would be to just go for it, do it. Don't lose sight of why you wanted to do it. That passion for it is really key. I know a lot of people who have started later in their lives, such as 18 or 20, and they've become one of the most successful choreographers and dancers out there. And it was because they held that drive and that passion for it. And it's really amazing to see what everybody can bring to the table, and whether or not you want to do it 1 hour a week or 10 hours a week. Bring yourself to the table, bring what you have to the table, bring your personality to the table, and you're gonna get what you want out of it. Confidence is one of the biggest things that I've seen. So many platforms are offering classes for dancers who want to get out of their comfort zone and express themselves. And I think that's the beauty within dance, because it can bring out one of the best aspects of people, and it brings people together. Dance is everywhere, whether it's social dances that have traveled across many generations. You see it on the media, all different platforms. It's becoming something that unifies people, and it makes people feel good doing it. So I encourage anybody to do it. I don't think you necessarily need to have so many hours of training to do something that makes you feel good. So thank you so much for having me. You can follow me on Instagram at Kiersten Yusi, or I also have a YouTube in which I will continue growing my platform. I am very grateful for this experience, and thank you so much.